start with you, and my question for you, after having seen all of this information today, is really based on the fact that town governments are on the front line in many respects with regard to responding to these shoreline change issues. So I wonder, for you in Bristol, how have these issues been discussed, if at all? And do you have any plans for dealing with them? Where does the town of Bristol stand with respect to these changes?
Okay, well, it's something that we've started talking about, and we probably need to get more involved in actual implementation of some of the things we've talked about. But just to give you an overview, Bristol is a peninsula located in the East Bay of Rhode Island. It's on the screen here, as you can see. It's either shaped like a lobster claw or shaped like a mitten, depending on what season it is. And for us, the climate change impacts are really sea level rise, coastal flooding, and then these extreme storm events that we're seeing more frequently. You know, I think just last week or the week before, we had 3 inches of rain in 45 minutes, I think was the calculation. So that causes a lot of inland flooding issues for the town. We have in our comprehensive plan, which is our guide plan for development, some language on general policies and goals that the state planning group required us to include in the plan. Very sort of loose, you know, general goals and policies that are sort of easy to have the council adopt. Those really have not translated into any planning or zoning regulations yet. But what we are doing are some infrastructure projects. And it's interesting to me because I think Bristol's been working hard on some drainage retrofits, drainage projects, trying to restore some wetlands to help with the flooding and the drainage areas. And I never really thought of these things as anything to address climate change or you know, anything to address the impacts that you're hearing today. But we have a very strong advocate with Save the Bay. I'll give her a shout out, Wendy Ferguson. And some of you may know her. She's been really instrumental at keeping these sorts of conversations going with the town and helping us to see that these infrastructure projects do actually help benefit the town in terms of the climate change that we're seeing. We are looking at, for example, we're looking at pulling pavement back from some dead-end streets that go very close to the edge of the water. We're looking at some restoration of wetlands in the Silver Creek watershed, which right now it's a golf course and it really wants to be a wetland. And she's trying to give us some ways to help the wetland work better as a wetland, things like that. And then one of the more complicated infrastructure projects that we're working on right now, I'll say working on, we're starting to have more conversations with the DOT, the Rhode Island DOT, and the Rhode Island DEM about the Papasquash Road area. I don't know if I can go back to that slide. Can I go back to the first slide? Just the left arrow. So the Papasquash Peninsula is the smaller peninsula that's on the left-hand side here, and there's a road that connects Hope Street, Route 114, around sort of the top of the Bristol Harbor there. And it's a road that was built right along the edge of the shore. And what we're seeing through these more frequent extreme high tides is this situation. This road is bad on a good day, and when you see the high tide, it just gets, to me, it's a real impact there. You know, this used to be a seawall. The seawall's gone, and we now have just sort of a pile of rocks. And that's what you see, and that was a cloudy day. I think these were in November of 2010, these pictures were from. And then that was another extreme high tide without a rain event. I think that was just a normal, well, obviously an extreme high tide without a weather event, I think. And these are some of the pictures. And so we've started to have conversations with the State Department of Transportation about the need to do something with this road. We've looked at, through Save the Bay's efforts, we've looked at possibility of maybe taking this road and not having it for vehicular traffic. Maybe it just needs to be for pedestrians and bicycles, and we have an alternative route through Colt State Park for vehicular traffic. These sorts of things, again, it's really, you know, nice to talk about them and plan for them and you know, look at the big picture. But the reality is that we can't really wait until we have the big picture. This is something that we need to address sooner rather than later, in my opinion. And we're probably going to look at maybe like a two-phased approach to fix it until we can develop a bigger plan to take this road out of, you know, the circulation plan as a road. I think, you know, one of the other things too is that it's very expensive to do anything when you start talking about these infrastructure projects. And I think, you know, the economic impact is something else that makes it hard. You've got the residents who have to kind of get a you know, change of mindset. You've got the political will that you need to work through, and then you've got to pay for it. And you know, that's when we started petitioning the DOT to get this road repaired. We really fought hard to have something done there, and then through the efforts of folks like the Coastal Institute and Save the Bay, who sort of pulled us back and said, wait a minute, do you really think it's a good idea to put money into this when, with the sea level rise and these more extreme tides, the elevation of the road isn't really going to be, you know, you can't maintain this road at the current elevation. You're going to have to look at either a more expensive fix or a different route. And then that, again, gets the conversation ramped up to something else. And we've got permitting, you know, CRMC is going to weigh in. So there's a lot of different components to consider. And it's something that I think we need to really try to keep on the table. And as we do these projects, the current planning projects, we need to be mindful of what the climate change is going to mean for these current projects, so that we're not faced with situations like this where we have to retrofit something that might be impossible to retrofit.